Morning, everyone. Welcome to Talking Horses. Sarah Obadwi, Andy Serling. We're presented to you by our friends at Saratoga Springwater. Did you see they had Saratoga Springwater at the, I'm getting a text, by the way, in case anyone wondered what that was. Frank Miramati not watching Talking Horses.
Good to know.
I would be upset if he was, actually.
It's early for him.
At the Biden Z Summit.
Oh, really?
They had Saratoga Water on the table.
So they sponsor many.
Do you think that the people were watching Talking Horses and that's what gave them the idea? You know what? I'm going with that story.
I think that that's a good story to tell yourself.
I'm going with the story that it's Talking Horse related. Anyway, we got 9 to talk about. Head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, no better time than the present. Use the promo code MATCH200 and we'll match up to $200 of your initial deposit. Think I need a new phone case here?
No, I think that one's perfect.
Apparently they're hard to find because I've known this for about 2 weeks. Trust me, it's not the only thing. I have light bulbs that have been out for like 3 years, 8 years. Anyway, we have, this is it. I mean, this is really one of the most exciting points of my week. The first middle pick 4 slate of the week. I don't know if you've heard, but there is a middle pick 4, 2, 3, and 6 in our 9-race card today. Good weekend of racing, by the way, coming up. Excellent card.
Good stakes.
Tomorrow's card, Saturday's card's a great card. We have a $2,500 hit and split on the late pick 4, which I think I should remember this because I was involved in it, and that was that weird situation last Thursday where some horse that could have been any price somehow ended up the favorite, and there was the late scratch in the firster. Anyway, that's the late pick 4 today. Hit it, play it to Naira Bets, opt in, and you will be involved if you hit it for the $2,500 bonus. Johnny, you don't have to worry about the TV. You can go back. We're okay. I can see that TV. Sarah can see it. We really appreciate your diligence. We have a cameo from the legendary John Kakamies doing the camera here. I don't think he's been marooned in the studio for many, many years. Anyway.
We see ourselves enough. I think we'll be okay.
We've got 3 TVs on, but really, you're good.
Thank you for trying.
You have to thank me. Anyhow, race number 1. We'll take a look at Paris Style, finishing second last time. Over Dreaming of Mo, finished nowhere in there. I mean, I know Paris Style is going to be an overwhelming favorite in this race, and in my opinion, she should be. I know she's had her chances, but she's also had her share of trips. She was trying to close into a speed bias 2 back. I mean, last time out, she was wide. The rail was gold. Dreaming of Mo was on the gold rail, and I thought she ran a winning race that day and probably lost to a horse that got very fortunate to come up the gold rail there. So I don't see any reason I'm supposed to bet against Paris Style, and frankly, unless Shug's horse that they paid a lot of money for with a turf pedigree turns out to be a dirt horse, I don't see why this horse is supposed to lose at a short price. So I'm not trying to beat Paris Style.
Yeah, she's a horse to beat. I mean, she's run well against the track 3 times, really, wide versus that gold rail, like you said last time, 3 back chasing that major speed day. And even on September 24th, that was a speed favoring day as well. So she's the likeliest winner. This is probably the easiest field she's been in to date. But I want to take a small shot with a horse that's trying to go a little bit further for the first time, second time out, with the number 1 Allegedly, who's Grand Dam Sightseek, actually a $2.4 million earner. Hasn't really...
People know who Sightseek is, I think. Don't you think? Yeah. You're playing like that guy who does the DRF closer looks that like will say Arrogate won $7.8 million, including the Dubai World Cup.
That would be much worse.
That guy is just like, it's incredible he has a job. But anyway.
My favorite is the gut feeling note for how horses should do in races. That's my favorite of all. But anyway,
Sightseek's pretty well known around here.
Great. Carlos Martin, maiden stretching out from sprints to routes, actually has some pretty good numbers on the dirt. He's 6 for 25, so 24%, $2.26 ROI over the past 5 years. So I just thought this one, the pedigree really suggests that she should appreciate getting a little bit more ground to work with, and this was the only shot that I wanted to take against the favorite.
Well, she'll be Arcangelo Part 2. That Juddmonte dumped her for $20,000 in Arrogate and with that kind of pedigree. So good luck stretching out. Obviously, she's an unknown in here. African Waters has more of a pedigree for turf. Didn't really do any running when oddly favored last time out. They're going to try dirt with her. I won't be surprised. To me, she's the only other horse you could play in this race. We'll see what happens in race number 1. Race number 2. Race number 2 I thought was a bit of a mess. I don't know about you. I will start with 3-0, who's this race is going to play a role in 2 races on today's card. I do think this is a much easier field than Ski Patrol finds himself in later in the day, and I won't be surprised if he wins. It's a tough beat. On the other hand, you're still dealing with a horse that in a sloppy sealed track off the turf, ran this big race. Maybe this is a horse, though, that probably could have belonged in the dirt all along, as it turns out. I'm not saying that's the case, but would it be shocking? On the other hand, it's not like any other dirt races were very good for this horse.
Right, I mean, he makes some sense, but at the same time, you have to wonder if this is sort of a number that is a little bit of an anomaly because he hadn't run a 72 or anything close to it on the dirt in the past. However, his turf races were all kind of fairly the same, so a little bit of a question mark, but he should be forward. It worried me a little bit that there were other horses that wanted to be forward in here and that he might not end up getting that same type of...
Oh, he's not going to be in front in here in all likelihood, depending on the break. So tell us about playing with matches.
Just a horse that should set up in that nice outside stalking position towards the outside. A horse that's also dropping in class. This is one of Linda's claims for 3-back for a $25,000 tag. 2 starts for tougher company, and now just dropping back to a spot where I feel as though he fits. She does well with these types of drops, and I just thought that he would get a good trip on the outside of other horses that did want to show some early speed.
She has good allowance to claiming numbers.
They're not bad. I mean,
no, I'm asking. I mean, you said she's good. What are the numbers? I mean,
allowance to claiming in dirt sprints, she's 15 for 70, 21%. ROI is not great, $1.36, however.
Well, that's terrible. So those are. I mean, to be fair, those are.
He's
lousy
not going
numbers.
to be that big a price, though.
Well, no. You're telling me she's roughly 20% with a $1.36 ROI, so she's winning with horses that are paying about $1.80. I mean, paying about. I lost them $6.80. On a horse that's going to be what in here? About 72.
Third choice?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, I picked this horse third. I don't know what to do with this horse because part of the problem is, and I agree with you, this horse ran against better horses in the last couple of starts. I have no argument with that. However, this horse has just consistently run slow numbers throughout his career. And at some point, it's not like there's even that one race that you can get back to and say, and I picked him third, so I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, you're
that
right.
He's a player in this race
run
at all.
faster.
I'm just saying, where is the race that Linda's going to get him to? You know what I mean? Like, where is that race?
No, you have to think that others have numbers that they might not get back to.
Right, but there's so many that have numbers that are better than him that I think it's very possible that one could get to them. It doesn't take much. I mean, what's the best fig he ever ran? A 65?
Yeah,
you know, it's not like he's ever run anything even really that competitive. He has no figure that towers over anybody of his single best race. And he's kind of a give up by Linda. Now, on the other hand, you could say she's not totally giving up. She claimed for 25. She's running for 30. I don't know. You know, I found this to be a very, very tricky race. Listen, David's got Mudville 9 at 7-2. I don't like that horse at all. Can't even imagine how that horse is competitive here. I mean,
I picked him fourth. I wasn't in love with him, but
more than anything else, I guess anybody can win. I mean, you know, what do you do with Face Barrio, right? Face Barrio suddenly ran that figure. Now, Face Barrio. Frank really doesn't know about talking horse because now he's calling me.
Hey, Frank, you can pick up.
So
I can talk to Frank.
Anyway, this horse has run a couple of figs like this. Having said that, the winner of that race came back and ran 8 Beyer point slowers. Now, others ran okay, but I don't know.
And I don't love that he kind of gets a little bit tired late in the stretch and he drifts out a little bit and then he ends up swapping back to the inside lead. And perhaps this was, coming out to meet some company, but I just don't love seeing that when I do think that there's going to be other pace in here.
Yeah, well, he's going to be somewhere with 3-0, sort of behind the horse that I picked. Now,
they've been so aggressive with him, and he didn't used to be this aggressive in the past. Cam Duke.
He's pretty quick. I mean, I think the races that he wasn't in front were just very fast paces. I mean, other than the one race in Aqueduct last year, when have they not been aggressive with him?
No, I'm not saying that they are always keeping him back. At the same time, they've really been sending him to be that all-out pace setter over the past couple of races, where in the past he could sit just a little bit off another horse.
Oh, I'd hate to see him sitting here.
No, he should go.
That would turn my stomach. It may not matter. He may run last. He is the horse. He was one of my 2 losers on August 17th because I was just committed to picking him. And listen, maybe I have a thing for a horse that sucks, and that could well be the case. Well, at one time in his career, he would beat this field.
Absolutely.
He is a gelding. They gave him some time off of those races, and they gelded him. So it makes me want to say maybe he had some issue. The other thing is, I don't want to pick any of these horses. I don't want to pick Face Barrio. I don't want to pick 3-0. I don't want to pick Mudville 9. I don't want to pick. They all can win.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, listen, Bucker 2 is sort of the lone horse we don't know about. I guess.
I don't love that all of his siblings that have one on dirt were on off racetracks. I wish one of them had tried a dry racetrack to possibly see if there's any sort of dirt ability within the family.
Well, there isn't. I mean, he's from a dam that was a nice turf horse that ran for George Weaver, and actually, I really liked Frivolous Buck. She was always. I have a win photo of her that one of their owners gave me in my office at Belmont that unfortunately may become part of the lore of Belmont. There's also some books up there I'm never going to get. The History in 7 Killings, the book about Bob Marley, the novel. It's a good book, Marlon James. The problem is the horse that this horse dueled with is awful, and I think finished 5th. So it's, when you first look at it, you say, well, dueled going a mile, but then you look at who the horse was dueling with, and it's like a terrible horse that finished well ahead of him.
Right.
So I don't know, but he is the wild card. I don't know. Race where I got to take a shot with, but this will be it for me with Cam Duke, I promise.
This is the end?
This is it.
All right, I'll hold you to it.
No, this is it. I'm done. So race number 3, Equinox scratched. Well, so what did you do here?
I went to the same horse as you. Just Linda Rice does have good numbers in this situation as well, going turf to dirt with second-time starters. She's 13 for 48, 27%, $2.76 ROI past 5 years. And then turf to dirt in that sample, she does well, 3 for 11. 5 of those 11 were in off the turf races, 1 winner, 4 in the money. And I just really did not
like anybody else.
Anyone else. Money Grab's the only other horse.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, I see the same way. Linda, second-time starter. Listen, Money Grab did lose to a pretty nice horse. That Dolomite's it's a nice horse.
This is something that Greg Wolf pointed out because we were talking about this race on the air, and he said that this was a horse that had taken a little bit of money first time out, was way too big a price, and he was absolutely right. This horse ended up running and finishing second.
Well, yes and no. Yeah.
She was way too big a price in her next start.
The winner of the race was 1-9 or 1-5. So at 19-1, was she third or fourth choice?
I think it was a little bit more than
Really?
that. Yeah, I think there was more of a discrepancy.
I think the exacta was around $19. Because I remember looking after the race and thinking,
there was a 7-1, an 8-1, another 8-1. So she, fifth
what did
choice.
the exacta pay?
Let's see.
I think the exacta pay around $18 or $19, which actually wasn't bad.
Paid for $1.870.
Right. So $17. So I agree that the price is more of an indication though of Dolomite being a short price. I don't have any problem with her, but like you, I wanted somebody else.
Just a little bit more dirt.
It's more of a dirt pedigree. The dam had a better buyer figures on the turf. Her progeny is sort of an anomaly.
There's 1 star, and that's it.
There's one really nice horse,
Melatonin.
Melatonin? No, good. Okay, I didn't think it was melatonin, but
Is it not?
no, it is melatonin. I just can't read my writing.
Oh, okay.
And 4 horrendous horses.
I was going to say, if we're mispronouncing that name, as in the owners wanted it to be
If I
something
could
else, would
spell
that
it, I
spelling?
could get melatonin.
Yeah,
I just can't read
Spelling's
my writing.
hard. It's okay.
I know what melatonin is. And there were 4 horses that couldn't
And I
run
know
at
who
all.
Sightseek is. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem with these horses.
Yeah.
They have one good foal. People go, oh, this horse is a half to $1 million winner, right? And 4
who
goats.
else? Yeah,
So
exactly.
you have to be careful with that, but it is a practical joke, so not surprised to see back in the dirt. And I agree with you. I thought Miss Bourbon, who you have third, was a little interesting for Tom. I thought she was green first time out.
Yeah.
And maybe she'd run a little bit better stretching out in her second start.
I agree. There's
And
just
be forward as well.
not much else after that.
No, there's not a whole lot going on here. The other thing about Money Grab, unless the one shows a lot of speed, Money Grab could be loose in this race. But if we're right that Practical Royalty is live, she probably has speed. Because usually when these Linda horses are live second time out, they have a lot more speed. So we'll see what happens. Race number 4. I hate these races with these entries. And I don't like jumping on entries, but
I was a little surprised.
well, I'm not going to go to Jolly Miss Jill. We'll show her last race. She actually ran very, very well last time.
She did.
You're insane, by the way, to have picked 4 of 6 horses in this race, and neither 1 and 2 included. Just so I'm on record. That's ridiculous.
I think it's a little crazy that you went to the favorite entry who probably doesn't want to go this far.
Well,
but here we are.
we're going to discuss that because I think you're wrong.
Okay.
Jolly Miss Jill ran very, very well in this race. This was a very fast pace. And while I got lucky and my horse Amity Island got it for second, she got it for second because the pace was fast. Now, the problem is with the presence of Angela's Party Girl and How's Your Cash Flow, she's going to face a lot of pressure again.
Right.
She is off a Rob Atras claim. I don't really love her, but I'm going through the rest of the field. Angela's Party Girl caught a flyer in a terrible field last
Stretching
time.
out, got to be
Where did that
controlled.
race come from? She's got to deal with other speed as well.
Yep.
Okay, Diamond Collector can't get a mile to save her life as it is, and her recent form is questionable. I'll let you tell us why a horse that can't win on paper is going to win this race. And Amity Island is the logical suck-up in this race, I agree. And I could have picked her on top, but I picked her last time. I don't want to be clever. I found a stat for Rudy Rodriguez. But first we're going to show how's your cash flows last race. I don't know that this horse can't go a mile. This horse was a huge price in a race off a layoff going a mile. Got a ridiculous trip that day and actually didn't run that badly. Where is the evidence that this horse can't get a mile? I don't see any. And Rudy has extremely good numbers stretching out. Now, I'm only showing this because I think it's important to this horse. Horses off wins that are stretching out, Rudy's numbers are strong. Now, the ROI is inflated by one horse, but it's still over $2 even if you take that horse out. And even in general on stretch outs, his numbers are pretty good. The other thing is 26 in the money out of 31. That's a pretty remarkable stat. So, yeah, I understand. I'm picking a favored entry over the second choice. But why am I supposed to be creative in here? Amity Island's the only other horse. What is the case to be made for A, throwing them both out completely and picking racing colors?
I don't think that How's Your Cash Flow wants the distance, and I think that that was something that Rudy himself actually ended up saying in the winning interview following.
Trainers are always right in what they say in interviews, right? And Rudy's always. So Rudy entered back in a mile. So
it's not the only reason.
Okay, what about Chasing Daylight? You don't think she fits in here as well?
I don't really like her, and I don't really think that she is a horse that necessarily is that good. I mean, she steps up following a win last out, but at the same time, I don't think that the blinkers are going to correct some of her drifting and her head tilting, and he doesn't have good numbers first off the claim first-time blinkers. He's 1 for 19 over the past 5 years.
She isn't that good, Sarah. The horse you picked is terrible.
Yes, she is.
So I understand she's a long shot, and I get it. But you can't, your excuse for picking against horses, I don't think she's that good, and then you pick racing colors. So you're going to have to give me some case
I am going
to why she's that excuse in every one of her dirt starts of her career.
No, it's the last two. It was the rail bias day in her last start where she ended up finishing third. She did not really spend much time on the rail whatsoever, maybe for a couple of strides going into the turn, but that was it. Otherwise, she was wide before that. She was wide after that. She ends up running third against horses that arguably could be a little bit better than this field that she's facing. And even in her start 2 back, she was enhanced by the dead rail and being wide, but the horse that won that day, Boss Lady Kim, she came back and replicated the same Beyer speed figure of 65. So it's not as though that completely doesn't hold up whatsoever. So her last 2 races have been much better than she has been running overall. She's really been outrunning her odds in those positions. And I think that she's a horse that will be coming from a little bit further back than a lot of horses that want to be forward who I don't necessarily think want to get the distance.
Okay, I can get your argument in her last race. I don't agree with anything you said about her race 2 back. She still ran a terrible race. She was still with the flow of the race and ran a 53 Beyer.
That's better than she had been running in the past.
So what? If she runs a 53 Beyer in this race, where's she going to finish? I mean, I'm arguing against horses going to pay $87. She wins like an even bigger fool than I already am. But okay.
You have to agree that if she runs a 57 again, she's not that far off a horse that ran a 60 last time, who's going to be 8-5 and part of an entry.
Well, the entry mate ran a 68.
That's a fair point, but you picked How's Your Cash Flow in front when you didn't know which ones were going to be in, right?
Well, yeah, but doesn't really matter. I'm still engaged in this entry. Listen, I'm fighting for 2 chalky prices, and you're taking stabs. I have a very strong opinion, and I know it goes against horrible, horrible advice on the internet that just throwing out favorites is incredibly bad for the health of your wallet. And the truth is...
You know that I don't personally follow by those rules, though, at the same time of just being like, well, I'm just going to get rid of them just because they're the favorite. I'm getting rid of them because I have a reason why I don't like them.
Okay. We see this race very differently. Race number 5. I understand that they're not exactly the most compelling favorites. The problem is who they're running against. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I could have picked the 8. I just hate picking her twice in a row, but she probably is the logical other horse. But
she was a great pick last time.
She got a, well, no, she sucked up and got second when she got a faster pace. She actually wasn't a great pick. Right, I appreciate that, but she wasn't, because I picked her on top. I sucked in for second when I got really lucky that 2 other horses decided to go aggressively for the lead, and the pace got a lot faster than it should have. So it was a pick where I made some money, but it wasn't a particularly good pick. I just got a little bit lucky. Now, when you pick long shots, you're allowed to get a little bit lucky, though she was second in, I think, a 5-horse field. Race number 5, I thought, was a massive, massive headache. And we'll go back to the Ski Patrol race, and I guess you have to ask yourself, and maybe, you know, how 3-0 runs. But then again, are you sure if 3-0 runs big in the earlier race, that means this horse is going to run well? Because
This is a tougher field.
I agree. This is a much tougher field, a bigger field. And while I think she can win this race, or he can win, I'm not inclined to want to pick this horse.
And I mean, this was also his first start on dirt, and he ran a similar number to what he had been capable of running on the turf and even the synthetic in the past. But at the same time, I think that this is also a situation now we're dealing with more horses that want to be forwardly placed. He was able to sit right behind the speed, angle out. He got a pretty good trip in there. I mean, I don't think that he's totally impossible by any means, but I think that this is a different. Yeah, this is a different kind of situation.
I completely agree with you on that. And then there's Coffray. And we'll go back with Coffray to last November, in fact, almost exactly a year ago when he could still run. The interesting thing about it is that Phil Antonacci is dropping this horse, and it's the end of his 5-year-old year, and I get it. But he actually ran well last time.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is a big drop.
He actually, he's taking a big dump, basically a please get him out of my barn dump. After his last race on the turf, he actually showed that he can still run a little bit. He was 25-1, and he ran. I mean, he didn't run well, but he ran reasonably well as a respectable fourth. Right, that's the thing that's weird about him. And, you know, he's also such an incredible cop-out pick here. And listen, we both have him second, but he's such a cop-out because...
Right, and this is one of those short prices, like, I'm not going to leave this horse out because he can certainly win.
So can the 1 and 2 in the last race. But the problem with this idiotic, false crap that's been spewed on people is that mathematical studies of multi-race bets prove that favorites are your friend. They prove that the actual payoffs mathematically make them your friend. It's not, I understand that there's a bunch of idiots that like to lie about what I say on the air about using favorites defensively. There are plenty of times where I play against. There was a race the other day where I used 1, 4, and 8. I made my case, and I threw out the first, second, and third choices because I had a legitimate case against it. It's a question of races where favorites are vulnerable, but there are other legs that are more important to you to stay alive in, so you have to use the favorite in certain races to get to your prices. Now, in your case, okay, you're taking a stand in the fourth race. That's fine. I don't agree with you, but that's fine. We're all right and rarely
but
and
if
wrong.
I'm right there,
much
I'm
more
not
often.
leaving out Caffrey in
Right.
here.
If you were to get your 7 horse in the home in the last race, and you got alive this race and you didn't have Coffray, you'd be even dumber. You'd be almost as dumb as the advice that those guys are giving out on the internet, and they just tell their fabulous tales. It's important, but it's also important to understand that the mathematics have been proven over time, because the reality is that people use a lot of price horses, and these price horses aren't as short in these multi-race bets in many, many cases, in all cases. So the mathematics make it a very tricky argument to have. And I understand the argument of having your money where it can do you the most good. But what is the most good? So anyway, you're getting Wayne Potts home here. Go for it.
Yeah, he's second off the claim for Potts. He exits the same Tommy gun race that a couple others come out of, third that day, closing up the rail. And I just feel as though we've sort of seen him return without a ton of flourish, but lately we are seeing horses come up with performances like Striking Speed, for example, and others that have really sort of been coming alive a little bit lately and hitting the board. And I feel as though he could be one of those horses that is now switching towards a more outside post position, likely to get some pace to close into, and didn't really run that badly last time either.
Okay, I didn't like the race he comes out of,
Yeah,
and I didn't think he ran it well, but that's fine. I mean, I'm not. This is a race where, I mean, it just I agonized over this race. I made
this
picks
is the
for
race
this
I did
race
last.
after I'd made all my picks, even for Friday, is
Yeah.
when I finally made picks for this race because I had a real headache, and I mean, I had the race open to 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yep.
And I knew I didn't really want the 2, and I knew I didn't really want the 6. I didn't really want the Tommy gun race. So after that, I was somewhere with the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and I just sort of went through, and I just don't know if John's protege can run it all anymore. I don't trust Commerce Comet, but the reality is that Linda does win with these drop downs off the claim, and this one's not going to be short of price. Now, she might have just made a terrible claim. This horse was not good last time. There is no doubt about it. And this may have just been a bad claim. On the other hand, maybe she's found the right field, and I didn't think the horse would be super short. I can see the case for counterfeit currency, kind of a new face in this race who's been facing much better horses. I think that horse makes some sense as well. So I'd probably, if I had to use 3, use 8, 9, 11. But this is a race. It's a fun race.
Yep.
it's a fun race, and you've gone for a horse that's going to be a much better price, and I certainly get that in this race. We'll be back with the late pick 4 that's got a $2,500 hit and split on it after a quick break.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
We're back, Sarah and Andy. We're just finishing our conversation. And the point, and Sarah was, we were talking about off camera, and I agree with you. The problem, it's fine to try to be really smart in one race in a sequence. Don't try to be smart in 3 of them, because nobody's smart that often, very, very often, even in the course of a lifetime. We're none of us, as smart as we think we are, and try to make money when you're right in that one race. Find that one race where you can be smart, and don't want to be so smart in the other races, because you won't be. Racing will prove how dumb we are much more often than it proves how smart we are. Race number 6, Clever Forever. This is the...
Speaking of.
I think that the connections would say they were not clever trying the turf. There is turf pedigree. I think this one, in fact, is related to a horse that was involved in an incident years ago in Saratoga. But, I mean, I don't want to, here's the problem with this race in Saratoga. We haven't really had a chance to see Rocket and Roll, who's entering the turf, is it today or tomorrow?
It's today.
Today. He's ran back once in the dirt, and he ran terribly. Now, was it a wet track? Most of them were wet tracks, right? No, it was actually a dry track. I'm not sure, in retrospect, a maiden race that we all thought was going to be really good. Didn't Dave Donkshorst come back and disappoint at a short price? The horse ran 4th in there.
Very funny. He had a little bit of a trip.
Yeah, he didn't run terribly.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if this race is that good. But still, he's the one to beat in here. The horse you have on top, I mean, he's like Bob Dylan when he was on the hiatus after he had the motorcycle crash and didn't reappear until Bangladesh. Because, I mean, he starts in May, he comes back in December, and now he's coming back in November.
I know.
So the question to Bruce is, are we going to see him in his next start next September?
Yeah, by appointment only.
It's just... I mean, he's obviously good.
He is good, but where is he? I know, it's frustrating. I'm sure it's frustrating for all the connections as well, because he clearly has some ability, and he's quick. I mean, this is a horse that's firing so many bullet workouts to come back into this race and has shown a lot of speed in his first 2 starts. And the horses that he beat first and second time out, I mean, beating Awesome Native, who's pretty good.
I mean, losing to.
Yes,
he beat Dreampoint.
Yes, you're right.
Let's not get carried away.
No, horses he beat,
getting
they're
nervous
not good.
about
You're
that.
absolutely right. Horses that he finished second to that beat him.
Savo's Mission is okay.
He's not.
The problem with him is 8-5 and 4-5, and just blown
What's he
away.
gonna be today,
He should have won his first start, to be fair. What's he going to be today? Second choice.
Right.
He's got to get 7, but with the 7 scratching, the pace got a lot easier for him. So I'm with you. I picked him second. He is just so hard to trust.
Yeah.
So hard to trust in this race. I like Caldo Candy. I think Caldo Candy ran extremely well last time. We're going to show you the pan and the head on the start of his last race. He's the number 9. So he's on the far outside in this race, and you can tell here he kind of breaks out. So I want to show people exactly what happened, because he was forced out at the start. But I think after that, and you know, yes, he was forced out with the horse inside of him. This was the rider's fault, who did something very foolish. But when you ride apprentices and they go to dead rails, it's on you, because either you tell them the rail's bad or they're going. I mean, this is reminiscent of a story that I'll tell you if I haven't told you sometime about me harassing a jockey at Belmont about being on a dead rail. The entire field was out in the sixth path, and he was
like,
on the
"Here I
rail.
am."
Did it occur to him that there might have been a reason that
Why
nobody
everyone was
was
there?
even in the forepath
No,
in this
that doesn't
race?
make any sense.
And so he has that trouble to start. This race was dominated on the front end, our friend Lee Einseiler winning this race, and he makes a big rally up a dead rail that nobody's even close to. Either way, and he still runs a 69 Beyer. So unless he freaked in the mud, he's for me, this horse. I like him.
Yeah, he makes sense.
Oh,
I don't.
very funny is the horse.
Yes, exactly. Here he is.
There he is. You're right, he ran one Beyer point higher.
He had a little bit of a trip next time, too. I mean, he seems like a horse that's just in behind horses and not super comfortable with that, and like a bigger type of individual as well, where that's really not the claustrophobic kind of space that you want to be in. But he draws inside again. So,
I also think this is a tougher field than he met last time.
I agree.
mean, you've got the 4 who's, I wouldn't say he's rock solid, but he seems pretty legit. You've got the 6 who obviously has ability and could just run off from the field, and the 1 who had a
one's
trip first
interesting.
time out. So
Right.
he's meeting a field where there's legitimately 3 horses that. No, I'm not saying he's going to finish 4th.
Right.
But he's got to get over all 3 of them. And I think last time
That's
out,
fair.
it just on paper was a much softer spot, even though he ran a respectable fig, which does give him a chance, to be fair. Race number 7. We will start with a replay of the horse you have on top. This is Be of Courage, and I think we're going back a ways. No, we're going last time when he finished 3rd. He's just running against much better horses last time, and when he runs his race, isn't he just the best horse in the race?
Precisely. I mean, now he's back in with those New York breds, and I think that he's also just run a little bit better in his last 2 starts overall as well than when he was in versus the New York bred company. He's run slightly better numbers, an 82 back, an 82 last time, and he's finishing 3rd to Redistricting, who's stakes quality, and Quality G, who's not that bad himself.
It's in good form.
And I mean, he's sort of still like fighting his way through traffic. He's coming from further off the pace than those horses. And I also thought that there's never any speed going on around here, but there should be some, at least on paper, in this spot.
Well, I mean, Courageous Ulah's got to go. You have to imagine Rocket and Roll, and Rocket and Roll does have enough turf pedigree, a half to 3 turf winners, that I think he's usable in this race because I agree with you. I have absolutely no argument. Be of Courage is the best horse. He's in the softest spot he's been in. He's also a horse that comes from so far back, and he's going to be a short price. So that bothers me. I just, on this turf course, taking horses that come from 10th, that get themselves lost in races. But you're absolutely, at least in my opinion, you're absolutely right. He's way the horse to beat in here.
I never want to pick a horse that's going to be that much of a closer, especially around here, but I think that he is just so much the horse to beat.
He is. You're absolutely right. Now, Lord Flintshire, even second, yes. He's probably the favorite to finish second. We'll show his last race.
That's what he does.
But he's a hanger. So to me, he's going to beat me in this race. He's what?
Yeah, I don't think
1
he's
for
gonna win.
21 with 8
seconds. Yep.
He's going to beat me. And if he does, I'll
Good
just
for him.
roll my eyes and say today was the day I lost to Lord Flintshire. He does not want to pass.
No.
So where else do you go in this race? Well, there's Shinsen. But Shinsen's kind of the same as the number 7, Be of Courage, and he's not as good.
Right.
So why would I want him over Be of Courage? And it doesn't mean that Be of Courage couldn't get in trouble and Shinsen couldn't beat him.
Sure.
But I'm not going to take the same
You can't bet on
horse.
who's going to get what trip.
I can take the 9 Rocket and Roll because he's a fuzzy with enough turf pedigree to use him in here. And listen, maybe Brad and the connections are running him on the turf because he's got enough pedigree. It's the end of turf season, and he ran so badly last time that they're finding out what they're going to do with him over the winter. And after that, they'll give him one more shot in non-winners of 1 before they drop him into a claiming race. So then there's Sell Something. And believe me, I'm no Sell Something fan. When he ran his big fig, he got a perfect trip. He didn't run that badly in his next start when 3rd, though. Now, he had a good trip that day, too. But he still ran okay in that race. And this is a horse that has races that are fast enough. He's first time in the turf since switching to Horacio de Paz, and we're both fans of Horacio. Mm-hmm. I don't love that he gets IRAD, but he's 15 to 1 in the morning line for David, so it's not as though anybody's expecting him to take a lot of money.
Right.
So even if he goes up at 8 or 10 to 1 in here, there's some things to like, and he's got some fast enough races. I'm not his biggest fan, but I want to give him one shot as a price. He draws well towards the inside. They've taken the rails down on the outer, so I imagine IRAD's going to probably be sitting in a pocket-type trip here, and I'll take my chances with him because there's so many in here I don't want.
Right. No, I'm glad that you mentioned him because I thought he was a little bit interesting, and that's why I ended up picking him 4th. And I think that he's a horse, too. He can be closer than he was last time out. He does not need to be that far back.
I also agree with, well, last time he was on the dirt. You're
Last
right.
time
No,
on
his,
turf.
I'm sorry.
Last
His
time on
last turf race, he was on the turf last time. Right. Well, I'm sorry. I misspoke. He's been on the turf for Horacio. I'm wrong. He's running against I'm Very Busy, who's a factor in the stake on Saturday. So he was running against horses that are in a
Bee of Courage
different
was in there as
galaxy.
well.
Now,
Yep.
to be fair, he was also bad. So that is a bit of a concern because he still could have run a little bit better than he did. And that is a bit of a concern. And I think I kind of misspoke with that. I want to give him one more chance in a softer type spot because I just don't want many horses in here. So for me, I'll take Bee of Courage to beat every known commodity other than a price horse that I'm a little interested in and Rocket and Roll. And I'll take my chances with that. Because I agree with you. The 7, Bee of Courage, all things being equal, it's just a way
He's
the
just
horse
a better
to beat
horse,
him here.
yeah.
Right. And you almost feel a little bit with him, like you kind of want him to win because he's had some tough losses.
He's been on AE
he's had some
lists,
trips.
yeah.
It's the end of the
Right off,
season,
yeah.
right? Doesn't he deserve a win? Some horses, he kind of deserves one. So race number 8, we're going to agree on Timely Conquest, and I'm sure we both sat around and tried to pick somebody else in here. We'll show his win 2 back. You know, this was one where Mark said afterwards, listen, they asked me to go in the Fleet Indian. It was a small field. I was odds on, so how can you say it was wrong to run in here? It wasn't, but obviously it was a mistake in retrospect. But you know what? You don't know their mistakes if you don't run. So if she hadn't run, they would have said, well, the buyer figure is really low. You should have run. You would have won.
Right. You find out.
I think if she runs back to either one of her races, she's going to win this race.
Right, and a horse that first time out was coming from off the pace and was able to weave in between horses, and then this time she goes right to the front and shows this, and now she cuts back, now she gets Lasix again. I mean, I'm just not trying to beat her. I really, like, as you mentioned, I looked for an alternative. I looked for possibly there's going to be other speed in here and that won't work out in her favor.
We don't
but
think
I think
we know she needs the lead. Why do we
right,
think she has to be a
exactly.
speed horse?
She's been
She went
tactical
because
in
of
the
her
past.
post last time too. I think it was a question because she broke inside
And
of
she can
horses.
take pressure
that
and
Johnny,
be right there anyway.
But I think that she went because she drew inside of those other horses and broke so well and had a horse that Johnny was like, what am I going to do? Grab her and rip her back? You break from the outside, you have many more options.
Yeah, and she doesn't need the lead to be successful, as we saw first time out.
Now, I do think speed was good on the 11th, so I think that helped her. But I thought her first race was very good.
Yeah.
For a first-time starter, she was not in great spots. She was climbing early in the race. I mean, she sort of figured it out during the running
yeah.
of the race, which you don't see that often. And I'm sort of with you that the cutback on Sweetest Princess, she's
Wasn't
the
that
other one I
interesting?
want.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not? Because there's so many in here I'm not, like, we'll look at the Cousin Christie temperamental race. And I think it's very important to show the start because the truth is the Cousin Christie had legitimate trouble and Javier drifted off the rail. So she was lone speed, she didn't break, she rushed up, she drifted off the rail, temperamental, it was a gold rail that day, temperamental got all the best of it. You see, she really stumbles here. So to be fair, she certainly should have won this race.
I remember.
I don't know, man. Wasn't this just a goofy off the turf race?
And isn't there going to be other speed in here now as well? I mean, there
would
are other
think.
horses that want to be forwardly placed.
Silver
Majestic
Fist,
Return, Miss
Montana
Big
Freda.
Bucks. I mean,
Nothing, Majestic Return, yeah.
right. I don't see this race going as well for her in terms of dynamics, and I know that she had that trouble, and Temperamental obviously was aided by the rail that day, but at the same time, I think that was a much softer spot than she's going to be in here.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, and especially because Cali Magic was a complete no-show.
Well, she was
I mean,
also
it wasn't
wide.
right, but she
really did not run.
also was terrible.
Right.
She was wide, but yeah,
She
she
was
was
very
also
bad.
bad. So yeah, it was a tougher spot if Cali Magic showed up. She didn't show up for whatever the reasons were, and you know, I think a fuzzy in here is Ms. Big Bucks, and the race that we'll show is. I know it's a turf race, basically. The turf horses off the turf. But I don't want to just be completely dismissive of her, and I don't want to be completely dismissive of a Michelle Nevin horse now, because she's actually got some ability. So she's kind of a wild card in here. I mean, this figure didn't come back fast enough that I don't want to be completely dismissive of her.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that we don't know enough about who she is on dirt to really fully say that she's not capable.
Okay, so my goofy horse in here is Fontana Freda, who I had 5th. But I
thought about her.
She does have that maiden win on the dirt, off the turf, that wasn't that bad. But it's still like the number 2 and just slower.
Right.
She'll be a big price. It's a little
No, I
interesting.
considered, and I mean, she did beat Tough Street when she did break her maiden, and Mike Maker
Yep.
second off the claim turf to dirt. He has good numbers, 7 for 31, 23%. So, I mean, it's
just
not
realized it.
impossible. What?
That's why she's running it here. I
'Cause
knew
it's
she
Mike?
beat Tough Street. because Mike Dubb owns Tough Street. And he probably said,
Well, she
she
beat
beat
Tough
Tough
Street.
Street, we should give her a try in the dirt.
Yeah.
So it just, I mean, I knew she beat Tough Street. I just didn't make that connection until you said
Yeah,
it. and
no,
I
she
thought
was
about it with
interesting. I
Michael.
thought about how can I make her in my top 4, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but
we'll see what happens.
She's intriguing.
Race number 9 is a good race. Now, unfortunately, Right to Win came out, who was going to be, I think, not the favorite, one of the favorites in this race, was going to have to get a mile and an eighth in here. So, my opinion this race is that I don't like War Officer, and we'll show War Officer's last race. I don't think War Officer, I think War Officer's coming out of a terrible race. I think the horse I liked in there would have won if he wasn't just the kind of horse that doesn't want to win, because he had no excuse. I mean, the winner, yes, the winner got an absolute dream trip in here to beat him, but he had a pretty good trip as well. And I just think there are so many more interesting horses in this race, or a number of more interesting horses, and a horse that just seems to clunk up and look like he's running better than he was. He was an awful even money shot last time. Look at him. He got there.
He's there.
He didn't want to pass.
Right. Honestly, the race got the same exact Buyer's speed figure. I liked his race 2 back a little bit more because he was so much further back. He had to steady a little bit at the start. He was coming from last, and he ended up finishing second and beating some of the horses that then beat him next time out. So I thought that effort
Yep.
first time on turf was a little bit better.
I didn't. I thought he got a very
was
contested
the
pace
same.
that day in a rainstorm. I just think he is who he is, but
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay, so how is Heart and Soul getting a mile and an eighth?
This is a horse that I don't feel as though needs to be in front and as aggressive as he was last time. And really, when he ran at Kentucky Downs, that was his first time on turf, and he was further back and very much so with the flow of that race. But
Well, it was a fast pace.
right, he was coming from farther back. There was a fast pace.
He's going to be in front in here unless he falls at the gate, right?
Do you think that they're going to try to send him again and be that aggressive? Because it didn't really work out last time.
He wasn't aggressive last time. He got a
He
slow
was on-
pace.
he
I
was
bet
on
him last
front.
time. It was terrible. He's at a slow pace and got nailed for second by
It's a
by a
faster
bad
pace
favorite.
than they usually run around here.
Well, it depends on the
isn't the
racetrack
two
he's
gonna
running
be in
on.
front?
What?
Isn't the 2 going to be in front?
Maybe, but he's going to be sitting second if the 2 isn't. I mean, he's going to be forward. You don't think he's going to be
No, I
forward
think he'll
here?
be forward. I just don't think he needs to be as sort of aggressive as he was last time.
Boy, to me, he's a horse that just bottomed out in the late
Yeah.
stages.
I don't know. I found it interesting, George
okay.
Weaver stat third off a little bit of a layoff like this, 45 to 180 days with maidens in turf routes. He's 4 for 12. So 33%, $1.78 ROI. I thought that was a little bit interesting.
What is the ROI?
$1.78.
So he won his third of his starts with 8 to 5 shots.
This horse won't be a big price either.
It's not a good stat to win a third of your starts with 8 to 5 shots. It's not horrendous, but it's not a good stat. No, what price is this horse going to be in here? Isn't he going to be a real?
Second, third choice.
Okay, we'll have to agree to disagree. I
Well,
wish
it'll
you
be
luck.
War Officer, Take Me to Jimmy, and who else?
No, you're right. With the 4
With the
scratch.
4 coming out?
Listen, I don't like him at all. So, and maybe I have a bad taste because I bet him last time, and I just thought he
picked
stopped
him
in the
last time,
stretch.
too.
I just needed him to be second
Yeah.
to the logical winner in that race.
Yep.
And listen, I'm very interested to see what Take Me to Jimmy does in here, because this was a horse that was a gigantic story. I think he'd been rained off in Saratoga, and it was the biggest catastrophe ever. He is there. He just gets completely taken out of the race early. So he blows the brake. And so Irad's down at Colonial, and this was one where Richie had said this, I remember, he just wanted to get it over with because he just made this long, this is an un-Irad ride. Irad is patient, he's deliberate, and he just made a long extended run after getting, now listen, you can say, well, shouldn't he have won that day? He was 1-2. The horse who won got a 64 buyer. He came back with a 75 and a 78. The third horse ran 14 buyer points better. I mean, these are 2-year-old figures.
Right.
They easily transfer the mid-70s. And then he came back here, and he didn't run particularly well here, but something must have gone wrong because he went on the shelf
was
for
nowhere.
over a year. He's been gelded. They really love this horse. I've actually never talked to Chad Brown on this. I had about 47 tips on this horse from different people that he was going to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Those tips when you say they're going to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, they never do. The dirt horses, they never do. It's always some horse you never heard of.
No, he's interesting coming back. Those numbers could easily transfer as far as the 2 to 3 progression, and he was inconvenienced in both starts, really. I mean, he was inside and a little bit kind of an uncomfortable trip last time. It wasn't brutal by any means, but
We're late.
oh yeah.
Yeah, we're late.
We could be
We're
done.
having so much fun that we're
having
late.
a great
So we're going to
time.
go. I'm going to use Champagne Juan. I'm going to use 9 and 12 in here. A tiny
There's some
bit of
turf
3.
pedigree.
There's definitely turf. The turf dam was good. And I have to horse one. I like this horse a little bit. I'm going to use 9s and 12s. Sarah, thank you. Sorry we went a little over. Sorry, Chris. Head over to Naira Bets. Use the promo code MATCH200 at NairaBets.com, and we will match the $200 of your initial deposit. It's a good thing I looked. We've been talking to the first race.
Forever.
Just having so much fun.
I know. That's what happens when you have a good
middle
time.
pick 4, races 2, 3, and 6. $2,500 hit and split. Opt in over at Naira Bets for the late pick 4 today. And that's it. No show. Be on for Prattles between races.
You might as well just stay.
I might. I'm going to go talk to the guys, actually. We're done. Chris is up impatiently or patiently.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Aqueduct. 9 races on today's card. Track is fast, turf is firm. Here are today's scratches and changes. Race 1, start of the early pick 5 is clear. No changes in today's first. Race 2, start of the early pick 4. The 1 is +1. Scratch the 6 will be famous. Race 3 is the start of the middle pick 4. Scratch the 4, Aqueduct. Race 4, start of the pick 6. The 1 is +1. Scratch the 4, Moon Boots. Scratch the 6, Vintage. Race 5 is the start of the late pick 5. Scratch the 3, Island Delight. Scratch the 4, High School Crush. The 6 is a Ridgeling. Race 6, start of the late pick 4. Scratch the 7, Friday I'm in Love. Scratch the 8, Twirling Vine. Race 7, rider on the 8, make it Eliseo Ruiz. Scratch the 13, Sonic Speed. Scratch the 14, Trap the Dream. Scratch the 15, Bourbon Chase. Scratch the 16, Leo and Royal. Race 8 is clear. Race 9, scratch the 4, Right to Win. The 10 is a first-time gelding. 9 races on today's Thursday afternoon card. Track is fast, turf is firm. It's all coming up the start of the early pick 5 in 20 minutes at Aqueduct. Good luck.
Experience the adrenaline-pumping, suspense-filled action of the